Emboss here, another rapid fire lesson. This is the one I really wanted to make. That's RGB color control and building display dashboards. This one really has no practical use except for fun and decorations. I'm going to start with the basic color control functions, but this video also covers the advanced methods of direct RGB control, both HexColour and components, leading to stuff like this or this. These two are in the blueprint book with the comment, but really just have fun with it. So again, one topic, 3 or 4 applications, under 20 minutes, let's go. Pre-Space Age, or even Factorio 2, you really only needed something like this. This is a modular design, and you can build it up into a full dashboard to monitor every science pack. Each column is completely independent, and you only need to configure 3 parameters. The item you want to measure goes in here, simple enough. I've fed this row along the bottom a compound signal like this. Each science has a small buffer just before being loaded onto the labs, and if the science isn't being produced evenly, one of these buffers starts to drop before the labs stop. The real reason I do this though is so I've got something to feed this pretty dashboard. Scaling. Now this design has 10 lamps for full scale. Obviously, 0 being empty, 10 lamps is full. This is configurable though, as you'd want to measure all sorts of different things to different max values. This is where you set the scale, work out how many items you want for full scale and divide that by 10. I've used 960 here because a full chest of science packs is 9,600. Now, if you look at these lamps, each one is configured to turn on with anything greater than each number. So you don't need to change anything up here. The configuration is all in the combinator at the bottom of the column. Now, colors. The simplest method of variable colors uses the 7 or 8 pre-configured color signals. Use the color as your output signal here, and you can even use the same combinator. Pros? It's dead simple. This one combinator chooses level and color. The pre-configured colors are suspiciously suitable for the 7 base game science packs. Cons. If you want any colors other than these though, I guess you're out of luck with this design at least. I've got a couple extra sciences and could really use an orange, hot pink, lime green, but this design kind of has to deal with repeat colors. You can probably just get by repeating yellow, purple and green like this for now, but if you're like me, this will bug you every time you look at it. Don't worry, we'll get to the proper solution by the end of the video. Now, in the blueprint book, as well as a pre-configured dashboard, I've also made a parameterized blueprint version for a single stack. You can drop one of these down, set the 3 values we spoke about, signal, scale and color, connect it up, and you are good to go. So what else could you do with it? A little detour from color control, but I did want to show something other than science dashboards. So here's another design, this time for my Make Anything setup. I can scroll along it to see the satisfaction of both inputs and outputs. Now, the best thing about this design is this combinator here. The dashboard is grouped into colored sections. For example, I've got the inputs from the bus here, modules, and this big train equipment section in light blue. It's all looking pretty good at the moment. This shows pretty quickly what the MAM needs to work on, and as long as this section on the left is healthy, I know it's not starved for inputs, so it will happily chip away at the demands while I'm off doing other things. I'm currently doing a slow solar rollout. I usually stamp down another few sections before I head off world. I've made a previous video showing how I control my MAMs with a single constant combinator, and how to use your personal logistic panel to update every MAM on every planet instantly. I promise if you go watch that one, you'll understand what I've got here without me having to repeat the whole thing. Anyway, this divider takes the logistics contents available in the whole network and divides it by the MAM request list on green. The output is the scaling value for each item in the queue. By doing it this way, I can optimize the request values per item on the fly, and not only will the MAM take action, but the dashboard will automatically update it to its new scale. Let's say I'm constantly running out of underground pipes, which I do. Why am I only carrying and building 50? I'll make that 150 here, and sure enough, the dashboard's now showing a deficit. And let's peek over here. Yep, the MAM is already on it. Undergrounds and regular pipes will be prioritized by the MAM until it's filled out my personal requests and then rebuilt the stockpile. Bam, done. Really, if you haven't already built MAMs to keep you and your construction bots fully stocked on every planet, you really should watch that other video. The basic combinator tutorial one, it's in the description. Now, sometimes an oversupply happens in these MAMs, maybe by a large bot deconstruction, or usually when you drop all your personal storage to head to space. That's why this design has been scaled like this. 100% satisfaction of the construction queue has been scaled to a 5 out of 10 lamps lit, so I can also see if I've got an excess of any product. See how this was done in the constant combinator here? I'm only dividing by 0.2 of the total request list. Remembering, or practicing your algebra, dividing by 0.2 is the same as multiplying by 5. So that's how I set the full scale on every item on the dashboard from here. Okay, now to the meat of the video. More colors than just the pre-configured signals. I need to show bright pink, orange, lime green, navy blue, and everything in between. I'm going to start with the basics of the lamp setup, then onto RGB. So hopefully by now you've already used this enable-disable checkbox and given lamps the ability to turn on and off based on a circuit condition, switch on if dot signal is greater than a certain value. You might have also gone and checked this one, use colors, which then means that one of the preset color signals will generate a colored output on the lamp. That's all pretty easy to figure out just by looking at the info panels. But what's this color components checkbox? This setting finally gives you your first fine control over the lamp's colors, using a simple method you're probably already familiar with. If you've picked a train or your armor's color before, you've used RGB components. By the way, you can customize your armor's color here. Do that now if you're sick of brown. So this constant combinator creates 3 signals used for RGB components to the lamps. You can see you're not limited to the specific color signals anymore either. You can use anything, like this guy I've set up using red ammo, lubricant and inserters for the red, green and blue signals. Hopefully that gives you some other ideas of ways to use variable displays based on real factory status. Like all of these, step 1 is come up with the idea. Then if you can write it down specifically enough, you can code it. These signals will be clamped between 0 and 255 as well. So there's no need to worry about bad values or out of range. I'll just give some nonsense values to show that. Now, this last checkbox though, packed RGB, gives you the full power to build whatever you like. Instead of having to control 3 circuit signals and keep them all within range, just set and feed in 1 circuit with the color you want, but this time as a decimal conversion of the hex representation of the same RGB colors above. If that's too much, don't worry about it for now. I will get you there. Just think of it like this. There's 16.7 million possible colors to choose from. Each one has a unique number assigned to it. And so if you know the color you want, just enter it in as a signal, and the lamp will perform a lookup against a list of magic numbers and display the right color. I will explain it better later, but one thing at a time for now. To show it in action, this logic here is just generating a pseudo-random number in the space between 1 and 16.7 million and sending it to the lamps here. Any color you want, you just need to know the correct number. These 2 combinators are my random number generator. Grab the blueprint if you want to explore it any closer. Just before it goes to the lamps, I slowed it down with another clock selector because no one wants their base filled with seizure generators, probably. Scale the clock up and down like this. Okay, so we've been building up to this. Here's how to set up a dashboard with packed RGB colors. I've almost got the same modular dashboard columns here, but instead of putting out the pre-configured color signal you want, they instead are using a intermediary signal. I've picked this dot signal, but you can use anything. All the possible colors I want to use are over in this constant combinator here. If you don't want to watch the rest of the video and just need to borrow the lesson, bam, borrow this constant combinator from the blueprint. It's called RGB colors, and look at that. Each science pack is there with a constant value of a pretty good display color for that particular pack. By the way, I know they have proper names, but I'm just going to keep calling them either the new colors or the planet they came from, like volcanoscience. Hope that doesn't annoy anyone too much. So, now we're not stuck with the pre-configured colors anymore. We can use any RGB color just by choosing the value to make this constant. This compound signal with all the colors I want now goes on the red wire across the same design as before. I'd love it if I could do one filter operation in each lamp, but that would just make this a bit too neat. So instead I've got each lamp individually configured to choose the color of its particular science pack. Doing this manually, it means the blueprint isn't modular or parameterizable anymore, but hey, design goals, right? RGB hex format. Okay, so now it's time to talk about these magic numbers. What do they mean? How does 3.3 million equal light blue? And how do you work out your own values? I've thought long and hard how far to go here without turning it into a full-on maths lesson. I figured you've made it this far because you're a bright cookie, and you want all the tools and knowledge to be able to make your own designs. If you're an engineer or a programmer, you can probably skip forward a bit here. So let's start with how we've been displaying the colors so far. I've got 3 numbers, positive whole numbers only, between 0 and 255. I'll make the last one 255 just so it's on the edge of the range. 256 is one of those special numbers in computer science. You probably recognize it already as 2 to the power of 8, which is another way to describe the range of possible values that can be stored in 1 byte. That's because there's 8 bits in 1 byte, so you can store 2 to the 8 different combinations of bits in 1 byte. So we'll convert these numbers into their 8-bit binary representations. Look at that last one. 255 becomes all ones in binary. It's the largest number you can show in 8 bits. Humans don't like looking at binary directly though. It gives most normal people the willies. Because of this, we usually write binary values in a human readable way, like this. There are 2-digit hexadecimal numbers. Each digit goes from 0 to 9, and then the first 6 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, to make each digit able to display 16 possible numbers instead of 10. So with 2 digits, 16 times 16 gives us 256. So now instead of 3 separate numbers between 0 and 255, we join these 3 bytes together and make a single 6-digit hexadecimal number. This here is the most common way you'll see a color communicated, called HexColour. I know you believe me, but let's open up Microsoft Paint anyway and have a look at the custom color window. So any of these colors, or even dragging this around, have a look over here. We've got the RGB components, all between 0 and 255, and sure enough, at the top, here's the hex color for our selection. I decided we don't need to know how to manually convert from hex to decimal and vice versa, not in this video anyway, not when calculators exist. So quickly back to the spreadsheet. I've got my hex number. Of course, Google knows how to convert, so let's see what we need. Hex to hex to decimal. Converts a hexadecimal number to decimal. Perfect. This number here is the number you want to put in your constant combinator to reflect the exact shade you want. One more thing to show in this section. We need to go back the other way too. There's probably a million of these, but I found a website called imagecolorpicker.com. American spelling of color here, sorry. I use this feature here to get rapid approximations of the colors I need without mucking around screenshotting science packs and pasting into Paint. So bring up Factorio again in the background. Give me a sec. There you go. That's how to get a good hex approximation of the pink you need to represent Fulgoran science. Doing this for each of the sciences, or really anything you want to track, is the best way to get an accurate color representation. You've made it through to the end. Congratulations. As a reward, I'll personally comment or help you out with any RGB display or decoration questions you might have. We all need more aesthetics in our factories, whether that's blueprint links, Reddit questions, whatever you like. Honestly though, I'm kind of out of ideas for topics that haven't already been covered by tons of other big names. I don't want to make more guides just to fill a crowded space, but there does have to be things people need help with that maybe hasn't been explained by the big boys. Put me to work, point me to what doesn't make sense to you and that you think I could help with. Otherwise, I had a thought about doing something similar to a Total War YouTuber I'm a fan of. If anyone's seen the Legend of Total War disaster videos, where he saves a campaign from a seemingly impossible situation, maybe I could help you design your way out of a sticky situation. This is a rare offer. Usually my services are very expensive, but they're going today for the low price of some good vibes. If not, I could branch out a bit further. Believe it or not, I got into Factorio a decade-ish ago because a friend of mine told me I could build rockets in here. Factory optimization is my day job, but rockets are my passion. Let me know what you think. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully you can take what you've learned and go light up the world.
Alright, so the compression and expansion of the longitudinal waves cause the erratic oscillation, you can see it there, of the neighboring particles. Guess what is it? What is it?
Can I play with it?
No, you can't play with it. You will enjoy it on as many levels as I do. The colors, children.